Oh, so welcome. This is our second, it's our third series. It's our second month. So we're going to talk about the experience of sexuality. Dr. Donalson is here every month, and we want to honor that. So thank you so much. And Aries Dial is our guest, and thank you for joining us. And I know Dr. Donalson will do a more elaborate introduction. So why don't we just take a moment and settle in, and you can close your eyes if you choose. So right here, right now, I just recognize that powerful presence that is the one, that it is me, it is you, it is all of us. It is everything, everywhere. And we just take a moment to breathe that in and recognize the magnitude of what that means. That in the mind, in the life of the divine, each and every one of us exists, that ever-expanding stream of consciousness that always has been and always will be and certainly is right here and right now. And so in knowing that, I know that tonight is so very, very special to all of us to have these conversations that open us up, make us more compassionate, more loving, more in line with that divine essence that has called all of us to be here tonight, to witness and to express and to ask questions, to be kind and loving. And so I know tonight is another opportunity, as many that we've had before. And so we just bless this and say how good it is to be together in community, how good it is to have Dr. Donalson here and Aries Dial to just present to us and then talk to us and let us ask questions. So we all come with a curious mind and an open heart. And with that, I am so grateful, and together we say, and so it is. And I will turn it over to you.
Hello, family. It is so good to be back at Genesis and back with all of you and back in this space together where we think together and grow together, and sometimes we're triggered together, and we're able to do that in love and light and in oneness, knowing that love is all there is. So I'm really, really glad to see everyone out tonight, and I'm so elated to have my special guest with me, Miss Aries M. Dial, and we'll talk to Miss Aries in just a moment. She's an amazing, amazing woman, and I mean it. I'm really authentic about that, and so we want to just celebrate the fact that she's here with us. But you know that it's our custom to ground our work in some scholarship. And so tonight I'm reading from, admittedly, full disclosure, a good friend of mine. And so I'm reading from the Reverend Dr. Pamela R. Lightsey. And she's written a book called Our Lives Matter, A Womanist Queer Theology. So if you have an opportunity to pick it up and check it out, please do so. She is a brilliant theologian and a professor. She's the only out Black, lesbian, preacher, ordained clergy person in the United Methodist Church right now, fighting for justice and equality within the United Methodist Church. And if you know anything about what's going on in that organization, she is right at the forefront of that work. And so I want to bring her name into the room. I want to lift that name up, but I also want to bring her scholarship into the room. And this is what she says: the ongoing response to these questions has been to say what makes queer or queerness different is not only its adherents' use of the term to declare their unwillingness to be placed in stagnant sexual categories, but also the term's ambiguity of definition. Is this ambiguity an initial subtlety? Perhaps, since most of the ways we speak about sex and sexuality are indeed ambiguous. What do we really know about sex and sexuality? Queer denotes ambiguity amidst sexual ambiguity. It is not an unwillingness to fully explicate or to rigorously declare a sort of epistemic privilege of defining queer identity. Queer need not become an epistemic community. Instead, like all humanity, we live as sexual beings that know little about the sex we enjoy. This is why I find queer theology so fascinating. It allows for possibilities beyond my present understanding. It depends on the notion, it dispels the notion of expertise when we often feel obliged to bear it. She's really saying to us, we don't know half as much as we think we know. And we live in a fluid ambiguity around things that we have tried to make concrete. And the reality is that what we have tried to make concrete, we've tried to make it concrete out of fear. Because the fluidity and the ambiguity of it all is quite scary. But the truth of the matter is we're living in the fluidity and ambiguity of it, whether we want to admit it or not. And to attempt to concretize it breeds a certain type of insanity that comes with the way in which we talk about sex and sexuality, and the ways in which we live out our sexuality and our sex is often maddening, because we won't face the truth of its fluidity and its ambiguity. So I thought we would start our conversation there after last month's in-depth conversation around all these wonderful labels and ways of talking and ways of describing. And this month we're talking about experiences. And what have been people's experience with sex, sexuality, gender, gender nonconforming, gender fluidity, etc., etc. All of these wonderful terms we unpacked last month. This month we're going to get into the experience of those things. And so our conversation partner tonight is Miss Aries M. Dial. And my first question that I'm going to ask Aries, I normally do an elaborate introduction, but in this particular case, I want to ask you, Aries, how do you introduce yourself?
There's only one Aries Dial.
This is true.
That's
I
it.
can attest to that.
And I walk in all that I am. Whether it's good or bad, I walk in it. And I learn from it. And I love the parts that I need to love. And I put aside the parts that I need to put aside. But I'm just Aries. I was created by God in the image of God. And I just love it. And I love life. I love the sun that's shining in here. Because that which created the sun created me and created us all. And so I revel in it. I love it. So that's who Aries is. Aries loves life. She loves her family. She loves church. I am a recovering Baptist. And so you all were saying some mm-hms over here, and I was like, yes, because I love that. So you could talk back to me and, tell me that you're hearing some stuff. So that's who Aries is. Simple, yet a beautiful mess.
All right, that's a great introduction. Simple yet a beautiful mess. So there was a lot of theology packed into 60 seconds to 2 minutes of an introduction, right? You said that I am created by God.
Yes.
And I believe you said, or at least I heard, a reflection of God.
Oh, yes.
Which is a theological so there's a theological term, imago Dei. Okay. We're all made in the image of God. And as you begin to talk about that, when we talk about sex and sexuality, particularly when we talk about gender, right, there's a lot of pushback in theological circles around gender fluidity, right? It's either male or it's female. And there's a theological arc there that we don't often talk about. We don't talk about the maleness in the divine and the femaleness in the divine, and every point on the gender variance has to exist in the divine. So thank you for giving us a quick window into that conversation. And I wanted to just name it outright, that it was there, the work is there. And it's how we often talk about the work. You make it sound so easy. but there's a lot of layering and nuancing to the place that you've come to.
Oh yeah.
And so I want to acknowledge that and appreciate it, and thank you for that gift.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll just start. What is gender to Aries, and how does gender, in your experience, differ from sexuality?
Oh, gender is who I am. It's all that I am. I mean, and it's a small part of who I am. You know, I don't know if I can go any further with that. Really, it's not in the forefront. Like, it's not. It's just who I am. I just get up every day and I'm Aries. I get up every day and I thank God for giving me breath in my body, another chance to get it right. And I just walk in who I am. Some days I may wear makeup. Some days I may go without it. Some days I may just want to be in my house naked. It changes from day to day. And sometimes it's just the same.
And
It's
how
all
is it
the
different
same.
from sexuality to you?
Sexuality is, God, that's a good question. Sexuality, I struggle with sexuality because I lived so long as a gay man, and then I transitioned to a woman, and then I ended up being with someone that was trans, a trans man. And it just, oh my God, it tore my world up. It made me interrogate things. And why do I feel like this is crazy? Why did I transition to then be with someone that's trans too? A male that's a female that's going that's transitioned to a male. It just didn't make sense to me, but it works. It works because we're not so caught up in our transness. We are, but we aren't.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So I don't know if I answered that question.
Sure.
But that's the best that I can come up with right now. If I think of something, I will say it.
Okay. So as we talk through gender and sexuality, my understanding of gender, my experience of gender is, and I want to name that it's my experience of
Yes.
gender, but it's also my academic understanding of gender, is that gender is performative.
Mhm.
And so you said, nah, I lived for so long as a gay man. And so there's a performative nature
Yeah.
to what we have decided is masculine or masculinity or feminine and femininity. And then I transitioned, right? So how is your gender performance different as a fully transitioned trans woman as opposed to the period in your life where you performed life as a gay male?
Well, I think that coming into my transition, I think that my gender expressed itself without me doing anything. It just did. I mean, I still have the same voice. I still have the same mannerisms. I'm still Aries. I mean, my mother gave me that name. It's my birth name, and I still have it. So now I just walk with my head a little bit higher than what I did before, because I thought before I was walking in what other people were calling my truth, and I had to walk in my own truth. And I just went on ahead and let my gender express itself exactly how it wanted to, and thus this is what you see.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And when I say it's beautiful, it's a process,
Oh God, yes.
right? Of being fully. So your gender was expressing, your embodiment wasn't reflecting
Right.
the expressing of your gender.
Right.
And transition for you was about an embodiment that would actually reflect the gender that was already expressing.
Exactly.
That's good.
In a more pronounced way.
In a more pronounced way. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When did you first self-identify as a trans woman?
So 10 years old, I went to my mother and I said, Mom, I know I'm a boy on the outside, but I feel like a girl on the inside.
Wow.
And my mother said, well, okay. And when she said, well, okay, it just like healed something in me, because it gave me permission. Because I think as a child, you want to make sure that you're doing what your mother tells you to do. You know, you want to make sure that you're making her proud. And I'm talking about my mom because I only had my mom. My father was killed Christmas Day, 1986, when I was 3 years old. And so I've only had my mom. And because of that, it helped thrust me into all that I could be. All that I can be. Because I told God, God, if you are with me and you allow my mom to be with me, let's go out into this world. I can go out into this world now. And so I know that it's a privilege that I have. It's definitely a privilege. And I cherish it, and I honor my mother for showing me true unconditional love. True unconditional love. So that's when I first knew, like 10 years old. I just knew. Now before then, I didn't want to be in my daddy's shoes. I wanted to be in my mama's shoes. I didn't want, I wanted I used to call it polished nails, not nail polish. I wanted polished nails. And my mother allowed that, you know. And it's really interesting. My mother, when she often tells me when she was pregnant with me that her and my father would always get into arguments because they had differing views of what gender I would be. And my mother wanted a girl so bad. And she prayed and she prayed and she prayed and she wanted a girl. And she said, and you came out and I loved you, but I did want a girl. And Lord, I mean, now she got a girl. She do. I mean, she would tell me how she would put a barrette in my head. She would play with my hair and she would put a barrette. And she said, one day I forgot that barrette was in your head. And I took you and I put you in a stroller and I walked you outside and everybody was telling me how pretty my little girl was. And she said, and I didn't correct them. I didn't say. So she got a girl, you know, and I'm grateful for that. And it ain't always been easy, but I'm grateful for my mom.
So we're going to veer off script a little
Let's
bit.
Go.
Full disclosure, I know your mother.
Yes.
I love
Short.
your mother.
She's short.
And she loves me.
Yes, she does. She say, we're going to that boy church.
That's right.
Yes.
So here's the question then. Because I can hear our more conservative siblings, after hearing your story, come back with the understanding that it was your mother's desire for you to be a girl, your desire to please your mother putting barrettes in your hair as a boy, that made you trans. That's going to be the narrative that our conservative siblings are going to hear. And then you said your daddy died, so it was just your mama. So your mama made you this way. How do you respond to that? And then even with your mother knowing from 10 how you felt, talk about a little bit about the process or the journey that she went on to move from referring to you as he to referring to you as your preferred pronoun.
Okay, so I'll answer the first one. Because God knew me before I was created in my mother's womb.
Theology alert.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
You know,
I love it.
You know it. God knew me, which means that there are no mistakes, which means I am an expression of God. And so whoever is listening to this, the same God that created you created me. And I'll walk in that. And I'll talk all day in that. And that's how I would answer that, and I'll leave that alone because I'll go on and keep going on about that. The second question, again.
The second question was, talk about your mom's process in transferring pronouns.
It was difficult for her because it was like everyone around her kept reminding her of who she had. And so to please them and not feel as though she was wronging them by affirming me, she went along for a little bit until I said, Mom, I said, now I got a husband. I got 2 little cats. I show up in this world just as I am, and you look a little crazy calling me he, and people looking at you like, who is she talking about? Don't look crazy, Mama, okay? And that's just how I explained it to her, you know. And it was a process. When I transitioned, back when I fully transitioned, when I started taking hormones, we'll go with that. My mother was the first person to give me my hormone shot. January 15th of 2009. It was such a healing moment for me, something I had always dreamed about. And so I reminded her of that. Ma, you helped me start this journey. And because you helped me start this journey, part of loving me is also respecting who I am. And when I broke it down like that, oh, she got it. I'm her baby. And you better not bother her baby, because she will get with you even in the church. She will.
She will.
I've seen it.
It's true.
I've seen it.
Mm-hmm. So let me then ask, and I want to get through our questions to get to the community questions.
Okay.
But there is something that we have to lift in this moment about the affirmation and the support of your family, and the necessity of affirmation and support from family, whether it be family of birth or family of choice, whatever that family is, whatever family means, that we must be in affirmative spaces to live into the full range of who we are, whether that is politically, sexually, theologically, whatever we're talking about as justice issues, that communities of support, families of support are imperative for justice work, more so for justice living. And that's another caveat, but I just want to lift that up. Okay, how did your religious understanding and your trans identity intersect? How did you reconcile? You said I'm a recovering Baptist. How did you reconcile Baptist theology and trans reality?
I brought a letter that I wanted to read, and I hope that you allow me to share it. But the first thing I would say is I threw the Bible away.
Did?
I did.
Okay.
And when I threw the Bible away, I got to experience God in a different way that I could never imagine. Because what happened was, when I threw the Bible away, along with throwing the Bible away, I threw away everything that everyone had ever said about me with it. And then I picked it back up again in who I am. And I read it with different eyes. And I seen myself all throughout the scripture. And could nobody tell me that God didn't love me no more? Are you kidding me? God cannot create me knowing all that I am only to hate me, and I'm created in God's image. Wouldn't that mean he hated himself or herself or itself? I don't think that will. No, that's stupid. So I had to throw away the Bible, and then I had to experience God. And then I brought a letter, because this is when I threw away the Bible. November 13th, 2005. I won't say the church name, but it starts off as very Baptist. In the book of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 15 through 17, it states, "Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go tell him his faults between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained a brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. The following series of events chronicle the Deacons Board, hereafter called the Board, attempts to resolve a conflict with our member, Brother Aries M. That's my maiden name. In accordance with Matthew 18:15-17, the board has brought this matter before the church to lay rest to the conflict. In 2001, the music ministry staff met with Brother Hangs to address a growing concern that his appearance and conduct were negatively affecting the worship experience. Specifically, Brother Hangs began to overtly express his immoral behavior and homosexual tendencies by wearing women's press-on fingernails while performing his duties as an assistant choir director. As an assistant choir director, Brother Hangs was responsible for leading the worship experience. Brother Hangs' appearance began and to date continues to create factions and discord amongst members of the choir and the congregation at large. And as some members supported his preference, other members were offended. The music ministry promptly requests that Brother Hangs cut his fingernails, and Brother Hangs flat out refused. Yes, I did. Brother Hangs continued to display his chosen path and his choice of wardrobe and mannerisms. The musical ministry staff subsequently made a formal appeal to the board to resolve the conflict. The board initially requested that Deacon Jones and Deacon Patterson meet with Brother Hangs. In an informal meeting, they requested that he engage in conduct befitting a Christian male and spiritual leader. They also requested that he cut his fingernails. Brother Hangs flat out refused to comply with the board's request. In December of 2001, Brother Hangs' directing privileges were suspended indefinitely pending further review by the board. In early 2002, the board decided that the pastor should counsel Brother Hangs and that the deacons should meet with the music staff as there continued to be murmuring in the choir from Brother Hangs' supporters. The deacons reported back to the board that Brother Hangs was unwilling to cut his fingernails. The musical staff ministry agreed it was in the church's best interest to restrict Brother Hangs' directing privileges. The deacons reported their findings to the board. The board decided that until Brother Hangs had a change of heart, that he could no longer serve in a leadership capacity. Over the past 3 years, Brother Hangs' conduct and appearance continues to exhibit an air of defiance. For example, Brother Hangs insists on singing with the soprano section, because I can squall, despite requests that he sing with the tenor section. He continues to transform his outward appearance as to take on more feminine qualities. When approached by members regarding these issues, Brother Hangs has become confrontational and combative. Brother Hangs has also refused free professional counseling. At best, Brother Hangs' actions reveal that at this time he is unwilling to be governed by the spiritual beliefs of this Christian body. Therefore, in accordance with Matthew 18:15-17, it is the board's recommendation that his membership with this church be withdrawn immediately. At this time, we will entertain a motion. That was the day that I threw my Bible away. Because surely, God hates me. Because God ordained these ministers and this deacon board to stand up in front of 1,500 people and read a letter that I knew nothing about. Had no idea. I was sitting in a choir stand in my robe, and they handed this letter to one of the deacons on the deacon's board. And my brother, my play brother, because you know in church we got play brothers and play sisters, he was sitting next to me and he said, well, what we about to do? I said, well, it seems like we're about to vote on something because they are asking all the visitors to leave the sanctuary. And they voted me out. And I just remember feeling, what in the world? What in God's world? What do you do with that? What it was, and when I look back at it, it was really meant as a death sentence for me. It was meant to kill me. I was supposed to go home and take pills or slice my wrist. That's what I was supposed to do. Because God didn't love me. Surely God didn't love me. Even though God created me. Even though the nails are no longer here. Because who cares about nails? You know? So I threw away the Bible. And then I went to church. I went to the same church for 2.5 years. I stayed right there in the pews. Sure did. I stood up with the visitors. Because God changed my assignment. My assignment was no longer to be the director of this 100 voice choir, where I would teach the choir. And we had 6 or 7 other directors, and of some who couldn't even teach the choir. So they would bring me down to teach voice parts to the choir because they couldn't teach them, and I couldn't direct the song on Sundays. I could teach in rehearsal, but I couldn't direct on Sundays because I was taking on this immoral behavior. Do you know how hard it is to pray for people who despitefully use you? My God. My God. But God changed my assignment. And my assignment was I was supposed to be there to show the true love of God. You want to know what God love is? I'm going to come back and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to worship God right here. And there ain't nothing you can do about it. Call the police. But that day, remember I told you my mama would go off in church. My mama went off right at the altar. They was Sister Jones. She said, this ain't no church. Y'all putting folk out. That's my baby. But we stayed there. And now I didn't understand it so much then, why it was so painful, why I almost lost my mind. But I now know that there were children that were watching me. And now I get inboxes from those children who said that because you were there, you helped to free me. So I stayed and I did God's assignment. And then I left when God said go. And right now, that big old church that's sitting over there that I put my pennies in the offering for to build, got about 10 members. That's God's doing. And bless them. Bless them. Bless them. That's it.
So, I've heard that story.
You have.
In a few iterations.
Yes.
And every time I hear it, it takes my breath away all over again.
Yeah.
Like, it's the first time I'm hearing it. But I don't know that I've ever said to you, we're sorry.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
We're sorry.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because sometimes I walk a lot of lines and I'm in a lot of spaces and places.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that quite intentionally. Much like you're standing up and being in that place. If everybody walks out the door, change doesn't happen. But sometimes people think your alliances are agreements. And you can become complicit in evil when you don't say we're sorry. I want to say or ask you that, again, our conservative siblings will call to task the statement, God made me this way. They'll say, no, the surgeon made you this way. The hormones made you this way. You chose this way. God made you this way, and you're going against the will of God. What is your response to that narrative?
I'll use my mother's words because I love her so much. She said, baby, now, you know, they often talk about Sodom and Gomorrah and that God destroyed the city. She said, now, when God destroys something, isn't it dead? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, but you still here. Simple for me. Just as simple as that. I'm still here. I ain't going nowhere until God says I need to come up to heaven. That's what I say to that. If God wanted me dead, God would have killed me and brought me right on where I need to go. But God made me. I'm here. I'm here. Period.
Sound like a line from The Color Purple.
Child. My favorite movie. I just talked about it today. Yes.
Yeah, that's some Alice Walker theology. But I'm here.
I'm here.
All right. So, perfect segue to the next question. You talked a little bit about what you've experienced as far as transphobia. But I want to bring up or lift in this space. Transphobia manifests both internal to the LGBT community and external to the LGBT community. And so you've given us an example of transphobia external to the LGBTQ plus community, which really in most cases is really the LGB community.
Yes.
And the T
is
over here somewhere else.
Very true.
But I was at TFAM, the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. Some years ago now. We were in Oakland. I think you were there.
I was there.
And
that's where you touched me. Right there in class.
Wow.
Yes. Amazing.
I was talking and I said to the community, stop acting like you don't have prejudices amongst yourselves. Stop acting like all the phobia is coming from outside. Because there are those of you in this room who don't like trans people. There are masculine presenting men who don't like feminine presenting men. And there are masculine presenting women who resent lipstick lesbians. And you treat each other bad. And you point the finger outside as though all of the attack is coming at you, but there's so much division internal to the community. And so my question for you is, talk to us a little bit about what that transphobia is within LGB communities.
I will start off with just saying transness, it causes people to the front. It calls people to the front. It calls you to be real with whatever you're going on. Because walking through this, because the spectrum is so wide with transness, it causes you to walk with a courage that not all people could do. You know, and I come from Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago on the west side. And God, walking through my neighborhood as myself, it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. But it calls people to interrogate parts in themselves that's not free. That's what transness does, I believe. God, I have my thoughts. They keep going. Ask me that question one more time. Just the last part.
Tell me about your experience with transphobia within the LGBT community.
I'll tell you. Okay, got it. I had a dear friend. She's still my friend too. I love her dearly. But as a trans person, I think sometimes I go back and forth, like, for lack of a better word, this passable thing. Like, I'm just Aries, whatever. But I get that for other people, it's what they want. It's what they want to achieve. They want to be passable and all of that stuff. And as a trans person, even though sometimes people perceive me how I present myself, I still have those tapes in my head. Are they clocking me? Do they know? I just do. And this one particular day, I was kind of saying that to my friend, and she said, "Well, child, you ain't fooling none of them black people, 'cause we know." And I was like, like, what do you do with that? Like, what? Now, this is a lesbian. A black lesbian. A lesbian that's in the community and doing the work. And had the nerve to say that. That's how I experienced it. Now, we talked about it because I love her. I think that we're supposed to talk to each other because we love one another. And we got to understanding of what that meant, how it made me feel. And don't you ever say that again. And now we're good. But that's how I have personally experienced it within the community. Because oftentimes I think that you would think, well, we're all a part of the community. And so surely you know not to say that. But it's not always true. It's just not always true.
Okay, so that brings me to another question. We could really literally talk for hours.
You know it.
But that brings me to another question, which will be my second to last question.
Okay.
My academic work has been around intersectionality and specifically intersectional theology and in emerging intersectional theology. That's where my research has been. You talked about a black lesbian woman who said to a black trans woman, black people clock you, which lifts every single layer of diversity that we've talked about in this justice series that we've been doing, because we started talking about race. And then from there we moved to religion, and we've talked a little bit about that tonight, and then to sexuality. So you literally embody the spheres of justice that we've covered. And my question for you is, can you speak to the multiple burdens of your own intersectionality and what that feels like in a lived reality?
Wow, you throwing that out there, aren't you? God. I am because of my faith. I am because I know the living God. I am because I serve the one that all of us serve, whether we are out in the mountains, whether we are out at our jobs, whether we are walking down the street, because we all serve something. I just choose to call it the one. I can't have one without the other. I can't have my faith without being who I am. I can't be who I am without my faith. You know, so I just walk in my faith, just as sure as I'm sitting here having the faith in this chair that the workmen who worked on this chair put the nuts and bolts and pieces together. Just as sure as I'm sitting here, that's the faith that I walk in. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. Truly, I know who holds tomorrow for me. Did that answer the question?
It did. It answered it in such a nuanced way, because you literally said, I can't be this black trans woman without my faith, and my faith informs my black trans femininity. So yes, you answered my question. I heard it in multiple ways. Tell us a little bit about the art that you brought. Explain that to us.
So they hang in my house. So when you walk in my home, they're the first things that you see. And I put them there strategically to have conversation about them. I'll tell you how I got them. I am an avid thrifter. I love thrifting. And I was thrifting with my husband, who I used to make go with me, and I stopped doing that because it was causing all kind of problems. So at this particular day, we were both in the Goodwill together, and I walked around the corner and I seen this picture first, and I was like, whoa, and I was like, man, that's a cool picture. And then I was like, but it would be nice if it was another one, so I'm just gonna leave it here. And so then I walked a little bit further and got a couple of things, and then I walked and I seen that one. And I was like, boo, go back there and get that. Go get that picture. We got to get these and take them home. And I got them for $5. Score, huh? But they're so interesting. And what I like about them is everything is not black and white. It just ain't. I went to this one little church, and the one thing that I got from this little church, because he was a lot, the pastor was a lot, but the one thing I got from him was, you get what you inspect and not what you expect. That was his theme. That's what he talked about all the time. And if you inspect these things, it's more than some black and white on there. You can interchange them. It's something about the way that the zipping down of them is so freeing. It's so freeing. Take it off. Just take it off. Get down to the nitty gritty. Take it off. And the delicacy of this person, because I don't even name the gender, I just say this person and that person. You know, the delicacy of them just holding it and just undoing it and pulling it down. So I brought these because I wanted you all to stare at them and figure out what they meant to you. But they stay in my home, and I took them. They were unframed, and I framed them, and they just sit on my wall. And it's just a reminder to me that everything is not black and white. It's not. Go on up and then color it just a little bit. Put a little gold on it. Make it shine. Unzip it. So that's what they are.
Aries, Miss Aries.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for bringing your full self.
Yes.
Your full authentic self.
Thank you for having me. And because of protocol, thank you, Pastor, for inviting and allowing me to be here. I felt the love when I walked in with the beautiful rhododendron outside, because I'm loving flowers now. I didn't used to like that, because in Chicago everything is concrete. But I just felt the love when I walked in. So keep doing that. And then I looked over and there was some incense over here. I said, can we burn that? I brought my candle from my home to sit on my little mantle and stuff. You know, so thank you for welcoming. And keep having these conversations. Thank you. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you. Okay, family, you know what we do. Now we open the floor. And again, I'm going to reiterate, I know that you can be heard. I know that you're loud. I know you don't need a mic. I agree. However, our videographer has asked us to use the mic. And so I want to invite your questions at this time and invite you to the mic. I know that something is sparked for you, so please come. Feel welcome.
I'm going to get up here first because otherwise I know I'll lose my nerve.
Good.
First of all, I want to say what a beautiful story that was, and what great courage you have, because if it was me in that place, I would have said, screw you, and I would have walked out, never to have come back. But to stay there,
Yeah.
and to be there and be an example like you were. Whoa, wow. Okay, so now I'm going to show my ignorance.
Okay.
Which
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so if you could just explain a little bit, because when you were talking about the clocking and everything, you lost me, and I have no idea what you were talking about, but I knew it was pretty important. So
a lot.
So that's
Yes. Are you finished?
yeah.
Okay. So a lot of the times with in our communities, there's this thing with passable and non-passable, meaning that, if you are female to male, then you should have facial hair and deep voice. And if you are transitioning from a male to female, then you need to have the curves and the makeup and, really look feminine and all of that stuff. And a lot of times people don't understand the spectrum of it all, and so they will misgender you, and they will call you out, and they will tell somebody that that's not really what they say they are. That's clocking them kind of on their radar, that you're not who you are presenting as, because I don't feel comfortable with how you're presenting your gender expression. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's clocking.
And I think, too, some of that, I was recently on a bachelor weekend. It's the first time I've been on a whole bachelor weekend. That was an experience. I learned so much. But I was on a bachelor weekend, and we were out, and there was someone in the room that was transitioning. And one of the guys said, that's a guy. And not in a negative sense, just a statement. That's a guy. And it was to say, for him, that's not someone with whom I would choose to be intimate with. Because despite the way they present, that's not what I am looking for. And of course, what I'm looking for is the most important thing in the room, right? That's just kind of a and so sometimes it's more out of a self-identifying of lines and demarcation, and this is where I'm at. It's more about that person than the person that they're even talking about. Now, intent and impact are two different things. And so while that person may be intending to make clarity for themselves, the impact on the person that they're talking about may be completely different, right? That impact might be quite negative, might be quite hurtful, could be quite harmful, even if that wasn't the original intent of the statement. And so I think that's why, one of the reasons it's really important to know about this practice of clocking, or if people think clocking is important, or being passable is important. There's a lot of conversation that has to be had around that.
But I just feel like, who made the rules?
Yeah, that's the question.
I mean, who made the rules? Break them. Just break them all. I mean, because I cannot, every time someone tried to put me in a box, I bust right out that box. Not because I was necessarily just doing it just to be doing it. It's because I was just being. People got to learn to just be. Okay? Just be. Be right there. Be who you are. Embrace that. Embrace the difference. Embrace someone that doesn't look like you. Embrace them, because the truth of the matter is, when you embrace them, you're embracing yourself. That's just how it is.
Is there another question? I want to make sure that everyone has room to ask the important things that need to be asked. Because our next time that we meet, we're going to ask that question that we ask at the end of every 3-month cycle. Okay, Genesis, what do we do with what we know? How do we change who we are? How do we respond to this? So get all of the questions you want to ask about experience out to inform our next conversation. Here comes another question. Come on, come right on that.
I actually don't have a question. I have a comment.
Okay.
I want to say that I greatly appreciate you.
Bless you.
My 8-year-old niece is transgender. She came out at 3.5.
Wow.
To her parents.
Uh-huh.
And it's refreshing to
Yes.
see somebody as an adult with so much confidence
Yeah.
and the mindset that you have. And your story completely moved me, and
Bless
I'm
you.
just very grateful for you, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing
And
your story with us.
Thank you. And I want to say to you to always be open, always be loving to them.
She's the most loved child.
Yes, because that's what we need. We need it so bad. Oh my God, so bad. So thank you for being that. Thank you for being love, because it's so necessary for this journey. Because it's a journey, it's a process. So thank you. Thank you.
Who's next?
Oh, don't be afraid. I am like an open book, child.
It's true.
Just ask the question.
Just
It's
as
okay.
open as can be. Anyone? Do you have a question? Well, come
I-
on to the microphone.
Oh, yes. Okay. Let's go. What's up? Okay.
So, can you hear me? Okay, cool. So, I believe you said when you threw out the Bible, your relationship with God kind of heightened and went to another level.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm curious to know what that looked like. And was it, was your experiences with God in the church when they heightened, or was it outside of the church? And then, how long did it take you before you picked up the Bible again? And then what led you to pick up the Bible again and decide that you were going to reread it?
I healed is what happened. That's what led me to pick up the Bible again, was I had a healing moment where I just knew who I was, and God really, really spoke to me and said, I got you. It was like right there. It made the little hairs, you got hairs on your ears, and it made my little hair stick up, because it was like, I got you. I made you. I know all about you. Tell me. When I didn't have anyone else, I only had God. And God was like, now pick up my word. Find yourself. You're in there. I created you. You're there. Find yourself. And I did. And it was so healing. And I picked it up again maybe about 3 years ago. About 3 years ago. Because I didn't want to read it no more. I didn't want to hear all those hateful things that people told me. And then I had to study for myself. I think that's very important. Study for yourself. Find yourself in there. You're in there. You're in there.
So, there's this way of reading the Bible, or reading Science of Mind, or reading, it's called a hermeneutic of suspicion. But there is a way that's even deeper than that, that is rarely talked about. It's called a hermeneutic of hunger. The hermeneutic of suspicion holds the text up and says, I need to interrogate and investigate this text to see where the truth of the text really is, whatever the text is. The hermeneutic of hunger says, I need to interrogate the text to find what is gospel for me.
Yes. Yes.
In all of who I am, what is gospel for me? What is good news for me? Even in Science of Mind, New Thought, however you want to call it, there are certain ways in which people are new thought, right? And if you're not new thought in this way, if you're not science of mind in this way, you're not science of mind enough, or you're not new thought enough, because every group silos itself into this thing called orthodoxy and says this is how we do what we do and this is who we are and this is the right interpretation of it. But a hermeneutic of hunger says that's a right interpretation of it for you. And I'm glad that that works for you in that way. But this is how I interpret this same text, and it lives and it breathes for me in this way. And you don't get to tell me that the way that it lives and breathes for me is wrong, because herein lies truth.
Yep.
This is where it's serviceable. And when you dig down in that hermeneutic of hunger, from the core of your question, the core of your identity, the core of your project. I ask people all the time when they read the scripture or tell me about the scripture, what is your project? What is the goal? And then when people tell me what their project is, I say, that's lovely. That's so good. That's love. That's not my project.
Right.
I don't understand that scripture the same way you do, because we're not doing the same thing. We're just not. I'm not even trying to go down that road you're on. Yeah, my GPS doesn't even record it as real. It just says recalculating route. Every time you talk, my internal GPS says recalculating route. Because my hermeneutic of hunger says I gotta find what's the good news for me. So every time I go home from Genesis, I go a different way, because I can never remember how to get here. I'm just confessing. And I can never remember how to get home. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm over here in Burien. I'm as lost as I could be. If I don't have a GPS, I'm gonna be stuck over here all night. So Gail has ridden home with me a couple times and taken me 2 different ways. And there are 2 ways that I never knew existed. Just didn't know you could go that way. And every time I leave, I try to get my GPS to take me that way. It never does. It takes me yet another way, right? Now, do I get home? Absolutely. Is the path different? Absolutely. The hermeneutic of hunger acknowledges that you've home, I've home, you've home, and we're going to get there. We're going to get to the divine. We will take a different path. We will go the fastest, most expeditious way for us. But we will get there, and we trust that, right? Okay, questions. Let's invite questions. Questions? Yes, come right up. You got to bring it down. We're vertically challenged. Down. Yeah, there you go.
I'm outstanding in my field. Remember that. Aries, you're gorgeous.
Oh, bless you.
And I had to say, it's the example of Christ in action is you. That church was like, before Jesus was crucified, in putting you out there and that hateful. And you rose above that, and you are my idol.
Bless you. Bless you. Thank God for that. My old pastor from that church really spoke prophetically over me. And I still hold, and I'm walking in it every day. He told me, he said, Aries, you are going to go places that I could never go. You are going to touch people that I could never touch. And I get to do it every single day of my life. I work in customer service. If you all have an Orca card, I'm the person you come see to get it. Come see me. But I get to, I say all the time, I get to serve the people of God every single day in that job. And I get to love on them, and I get to brighten their day. I get to listen to their problems, because they got some problems. They got problems. Ooh, they got some problems. And I listen, and I just want to be a light. I want to be a light wherever I go. And so that is the Christ in me. That is Christ. That's who Christ should be in everyone. If that's who you worship. Bless you.
Come on back.
Yes.
So like, I feel like in your way. Okay, so I do have a question now.
Yes.
So suicide rates amongst transgender is really high. I know that was my family's one of their concerns when my niece came out. And transgender hasn't been widely accepted, at least not when you were coming up, as much as it is today, and it's still not there. We're still not there. Can you speak to what your experience was like for you during that time with society and societal pressures that were going on in your during your time?
Yes. So at 13, when I was starting high school, I actually missed the first 3 weeks of high school, my freshman year, because I was in a mental hospital because I had tried to commit suicide. And it was because I didn't know, how am I supposed to go through this life if God hates me? Because I grew up in a religious family. I told you I'm recovering Baptist. And so how do I make it? And I went to that hospital, and I was in there, and it was truly some folks that were supposed to be there to get the help that they need. But I got my help by looking at those folks around me and saying, oh, God created them, and God created me too. And I'm good now because I got God. I was blessed to have family that were my blood family and my chosen family. And I think that that's very important for anyone on any journey, really, is to have both. So I thank God for that. I thank God for that. But I think the more churches and places of worship that call themselves followers of Christ need to open their doors wide. As wide as you can get them. And you bring everybody in. And then you sit. Families, thank God for this. Families have to sit with one another. And we have to be in relationship with one another. And sometimes that requires some hard conversations. And sometimes it requires us to love beyond what we could see. Because when we understand, when we love beyond what we can see, we are loving ourselves. It always comes back to yourself. Always. Always. So I don't pretend to know what the answer is for the suicide rate. I can only speak about how I was helped, and that was because I had support. I had the love of God. I had the love of my family, and I also had the love of some of those church members who would come to me and still love on me and still hug me and still talk to me and didn't act like I was so weird, So be mindful when you are encountering people, and always be a light.
I want to offer one thing. Are there more questions? I don't want to hinder anybody's questions.
And can I say one more
Please.
thing? Bishop Flunder, who I just love so much. Oh my God.
Lady Bishop.
She said that one thing, and I don't know if it's what she said or if she heard it, but I believe it's what she said. She said, we got to really interrogate things. She said, in the book of Genesis, when they talk about Adam and Eve, and she said, and where did Eve come from? And, most people say from the rib. of Adam. And she said, well, sit with that. Because what it really means is that there was enough woman in Adam. There was enough woman in Adam. Sit with that. Y'all ponder that and go talk amongst yourselves about that. Because that blessed my whole... Bishop, if you listening or ever see this, thank you for that. That was so freeing. Oh my God. Sit with it. That's something.
So I want to offer, there's this common language around coming out. Oh, so-and-so came out, so-and-so came out, so-and-so came out, which has been truncated from came out the closet. And closets are for brooms. And no one's ever in the closet. Let me just be very real with you. Like, nobody is ever in the closet.
They think they are.
What really is true is that you and I get invited in. We're invited into someone's truth. We're invited into someone's reality. We're invited into someone's life in ways, they say straight people don't come out. No, but they do invite you in. Because they come home and they say, I've got a crush on this little girl. They've just invited you into their heterosexuality. If a little boy comes home and says, I've got a crush on another little boy, he's invited you in to his same gender loving reality. So nobody is coming out. We're all constantly inviting people in and making decisions about who will know us in what way. And we do that over and over
Every
and
day.
over and over.
I'm coming out now.
Again. Are you coming out?
I'm coming out.
Right now.
Yes.
All right, I see you.
All the
I see what you're
time.
doing. But it's not a one-time thing.
No.
It's an every time thing.
Yes.
And we do young people a grave disservice when we make them think coming out is an event.
Right.
Have you come out of the closet? Yes. Okay, well that's it. You've done it now.
Look, I made an event with my mother the first time I had to come out as a gay man.
I bet you did.
Child, I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to have a perfect boyfriend that looked good. I wanted everything, my apartment. I wanted all of that. And then one day I came out and she said, really? That's what you wanted to tell me? Now you done did all this running around the block trying to tell me. I made an event out of it. I did. I promise I did. And it was, she made it so easy, so simple. It's just like coming out every day. You come out every day. You put on them pants you put on and them shoes, and you fixed your hair and you did all of those things, and you came right on out that door. You come out every day. Get free.
If you haven't noticed, Miss Aries' theme is get free, be free. This is just like she says, it's like get free.
Just get free, child.
What are you doing? Get free, be free. That's Miss Aries for you. Are there any other questions? If there are not any really pressing questions, I want to again just commend Genesis for having these conversations and for showing up present, fully present as your whole selves in these moments, and having the transparency and tenacity to say, hey, this is what I don't know, this is what I don't get, this is even what I don't like. Right? Because this is the only way that we heal the world. We heal the world by expanding the table. And when everyone knows that they have a seat at the table, whatever that seat might look like, then we can really make the change that we want to see in the world. So thank you so much, and I celebrate each one of you, and I'm turning it back over into the hands of Gail, and let's just celebrate her as she comes.
It was a little. Hey, be kind. Edward, tell her to be kind.
And be kind.
So I want to remind everyone that although this is an absolutely free event, we do have a basket at the back of the room. It's a love offering, and anything that is given is split between our two guests. So just, yes. Yeah. And so if you want, thank you all. Next month we're going to do the Let's Walk Our Talk. So where do we take this 2 months of information, and what is Genesis as a community going to do with that? So if you want, you can close your eyes. And I don't know whether to start with a thank you God or a get free. Both. So we just say thank you, God. Thank you for this evening. Thank you for everyone that had the courage to show up and be themselves. Thank you, Aries, for the woman that you are. Oh my God, what a light in the world. Thank each one of you, because remember when she was speaking, she reminded each one of us we are that light in the world. Each one of us individualized, an essence of the divine in form. And so remind yourself of that every single day. Every single day. Remind yourself who you are, why you're here, what's yours to do. And then show up and be that. And so with that, I just say, thank you, God. Get free. Let's be bold. And so it is. Amen.